To be living with a man on the down low, I felt, first of all, I did not find out I was living with a man on the down low until after he was dead. So I didn't know he had this secret life. I thought that maybe he was a victim of AIDS.
If you could have been a fly on the wall at some of the interviews I've had with men from 18 to 68 who were pillars of their community, who were in the pulpit every Sunday, who were police officers, really strong African-American men who, fathers and the perfect brothers, and to hear them say, I'm just a freak, man, I'm gonna get mine. My girl don't have a clue what's going on. My wife don't have a clue what's going on.
You're scaring me.
But that's real.
He was diagnosed with AIDS in '92. We just thought that there was just this tragic thing. Maybe he got it through a blood transfusion. He was claiming that he didn't know how he got it. I didn't have any suspicions of this. This is something that I've never been exposed to. I don't think that most women think that their dream man, who's tall and fine and a good provider for a family, I don't think that we ever think that maybe he's gay. I have several gay friends or bisexual friends, and I never even thought to look in my own backyard.
The purpose of this piece is to educate, to enlighten, and to inform women on the at-risk behavior of men who are putting their lives at risk of being infected and impacted by the HIV virus. It is my prayer and my hope that this piece is used to help decrease the number of new HIV cases in our community. I remember when I first used those two little words in Washington, D.C. at the National African American Conference on AIDS, and how the New York Times did a story about this black man who stood up and talked about his life, his double life, and how his life has a direct impact on the spread of the virus. I remember that next day how I received hundreds of emails from people around the country. Some were happy that I stepped forward. Some were critical of my message. Some could not believe, with all the burdens that a black man bears now, of being undereducated, being a higher percentage of incarcerated, and now you have the nerve to say that black men are having sex with other men and spreading the virus to our women. How dare you?
My understanding of life on the down low is when brothers sleep with other men and don't identify themselves as homosexuals.
If you're in a relationship with someone and you are seeing someone else in another, I guess, if you want to call it a relationship, but it's not anything that is, I guess, that is public knowledge to your other friends. It's just maybe, having a one-night stand or having different types of relationships where you're not taking responsibility for it.
I've never heard of life with the down low.
My personal belief is being in the closet of, no matter how the person's living, they just, in the closet with how they living, so they're on the down low. It could be a person with the virus, don't know how to communicate, talk to somebody about it, or they don't know how to speak to someone that can help them or speak to their own personal friends. They'll keep it on the down low.
Something under the surface, something that's not being outward.
I actually have heard of life on the down low. I read about it in an article in USA Today, and it was circulated on a couple of email lists that I'm on, and there's quite a lot of buzz about it.
Life on the DL is, it's kind of living way down low where no one really knows what you do.
Well, life on the down low to me means doing stuff that's under the scene, under covers, doing things that many people don't know about.
Kind of like living a life, like doing things you don't have any business doing.
The definition of a down low man is a man who has sex with both men and women, but do not consider his behavior as being gay or homosexual or even bisexual. The lifestyle of a down low individual is one that puts his wife, his family, and his girlfriend at risk of being infected or impacted by the HIV virus because of his high at-risk behavior of having unprotected sex. A down low man is a man who will go out and will have sex and will come back home and have sex with his wife or with his girlfriend. And even if she suspects, or even if she would ask him of his double life, he still will deny it. A down low character, a down low individual never admits that he's having sex with a man.
How can you say you're not gay if you're having sex with men? Isn't that what being homosexual is?
In the African American community, homophobism is huge. The fear of being labeled outside of being a man forces men to not admit. It forces us not to be labeled. The media has always portrayed men who have sex with men as being flamboyant, as being queer, as being more or less than a man. Most African American men do not want to be labeled as that. If you say, or if I admit that I'm gay, automatically in my community, I am one who is spreading a virus into the community. If I will admit that I am gay in the African American community, then I am automatically a person who preys on little boys. I am a person who cannot be trusted around kids. I am a person that will do whatever it takes to satisfy the need of my sexual desire.
And in the black community that's added on, then you have a black man having sex with another black man. Right. That's not even thought of.
Right. You have to let, women know and men and our young sons and our young daughters that this behavior is happening, that these things are happening, because I had no clue.
A friend of mine found out that he was HIV positive after coming back from Las Vegas. When he came to my house and he asked me, what should he do? The first thing I said to him was, bruh, where do you think you got the virus from? Now, I knew that he was part of the DL community. He had got the virus from his boy. However, because of the fear of being a leader of his community, of the fear of being a new father, of the fear of being a deacon in his church, he knew, and we both knew, that he could not admit that to anyone. So what we did was, because he had just recently came from Las Vegas, we put it on a woman. We told his family, or I told him to tell his family, to tell your wife and tell your family that when you were in Las Vegas, you picked up a prostitute and you had unprotected sex with her. And that's where the virus came from. Because if you do it that way, your family and your community will still love you. But if you go home and tell your wife and your community and your family that you were infected from another man, from a relationship that you were having behind your wife's back with another man, you will be ostracized from your community.
When I found out my husband was positive, I had to do everything differently that I would do in a relationship in terms of protecting myself, washing things with bleach, because bleach kills the AIDS infection. Making sure that, the linens were always clean, making sure we didn't accidentally share a toothbrush, making sure that when we kissed that, he didn't have an excess amount of saliva in his mouth, making sure that when we had sex, he had on a rubber. So those kinds of things are different. And let me tell you, it's no picnic trying to tip around somebody who you know is sick, who can give it to you.
Imagine a house of MSM, men who have sex with men. There are 4 rooms in this house, because I think it's important that you understand so you don't look at all men who have sex with men as the same. In one room, you have gay men. These are men who have accepted the fact that they are gay. They don't plan on getting married. They don't plan on lying or deceiving women. We all know those gay men. They're our churches. They sometimes do your hair. Sometimes they do your nails. Sometimes they're your best friends. They work side by side with you. They're not trying to hide of what their sexual behavior and their sexual like is. And so those men are men who are not infecting our sisters. And then you across the hall from that room, you have closeted gay men. And these are gay men because of religion, because of jobs, because of family, because of pressure of being a father or pressure from their family or wanting grandkids, that they stay in a closet. They are gay, they know they're gay, but because of pressure, because of society, because of their faith, they stay in the closet. Downstairs from that room, if you can imagine this house, you have a room of bisexual men. Bisexual men are men who like having sex with both men and women. And if they are asked, they will admit it. They will say, yeah, I'm just a freak like that. I like having sex. To me, a hoe is a hoe. And I'm going to get mine every chance I get. And 9 out of 10 times, they will share that with their girlfriends. And they will try to convince their women that we should have threesomes. But they have no problems claiming that label of being bisexual. But in another room, downstairs in the basement, tucked away, with a sign on the door that said, do not enter, is a group of men who, no matter what you say, no matter how much you probe them, and sometimes no matter how much money you can offer them, they will never admit that they are having sex with men. And these men do not relate, like, or support any of the other 3 rooms above. Down low men are one of the first group of men who will gay bash. They are men who will speak negative of the gay culture. They are men who will say that is sickening. They should be shot.
If you look on the TV and the videos and you see all the hoochie mamas and all of the videos where everybody's running around half naked and the music, sex, 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 sex. And it seems like nobody promotes any type of positive type of acts, and it just seems like sex is the biggest thing.
I believe it ran rampant because lack of communication.
I guess the lack of information.
So a lot of people just feel like it's relegated to a certain part of the community, a certain segment of the community, and as long as that's not their immediate set of friends or acquaintances, then it doesn't affect them, when it really does.
If you're heterosexual, you don't think it really affects you. So you kind of live in this world there you don't know, you don't really see because you don't really hear about it in our everyday conversation.
Back in the day, you know, people used to date. Now everybody is just friends. You know, everybody's sleeping with everybody and not being particularly careful about it.
Sex, 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 sex.
People are taking for granted just how to be careful. That HIV is not just about, protection's not just about not having babies.
Just not educated enough, or, you know, by the given token, just ignorant to the fact that, you know, anybody can receive AIDS.
There's a lot of ignorance about it. I think people think that it's a gay disease. It won't harm them.
With all the talk and all the shouts and all the screaming and all the posters and all the PSAs, why is it that we ain't hearing it? As a race of people, why are we not hearing it?
I think people still believe that it can't happen to them. I think people still under the impression that, oh, well, he doesn't look like he's sick, or he does. I think people are really believing that still.
I believe that HIV is so high in communities of color primarily because we think that it doesn't affect us. And we think that we're not at risk. And we think that it's just going to vicariously pass over us, and we cannot be touched, and we are untouchable, and the roulette does not stop on our number.
I plead and I beg and I ask that the men who are living double lives, that if nothing else, that they protect their families by having safer sex, that they think about what they are doing, that they get away from the denial that their behavior does not have an impact on our community, and more so, their families. If I could talk to every brother who are living a double life, I would not preach to them, nor would I try to convince them to stop their behavior. My message to them would be simple. Protect your family. Protect yourself. Women are fighting a losing battle with this. They cannot win this fight.
Part of the reason why the HIV infection rates are still rising in the Black community is there's resistance to the message of prevention and awareness. And there are a lot of social factors that fuel transmission, like risky behavior, Part of that is drug use. Part of that among the youth in particular is that it won't happen to me, that sense of immortality. So unfortunately, although there is awareness, we're 20 years into the AIDS crisis. And unless you know someone, or you know someone that knows someone that has actually contracted HIV or AIDS, you won't necessarily think it'll happen to you.
I always thought it was spreading like that in different parts of Africa, but I didn't know it was spreading like that here. Wow.
Even though this phenomena has been the #1 issue across the media for the past year and a half, there are still women who have not heard the message.
We all know what HIV is. We all know what AIDS is. We know what this does, yet we still have unprotected sex. Why? I mean, okay, you don't have a plethora of information, a wealth of information about it, but you know the basis of what happens when you have unprotected sex.
Recently, I had an opportunity to speak at a black college campus where there was 1,500 young women who came to hear about this down low behavior. The first question I asked was to these young women, how many of you in here are having unprotected sex or have had unprotected sex or have a girlfriend or a sister who is pregnant? 100% of the audience raised their hand. When I have opportunity to talk to mature sisters, to mature women, and when I ask them the same question, even though they may not want to be honest with themselves, but the look on their face is telling me that they are having and putting themselves at risk to being infected or being impacted by something that they have no choice on.
When we love hard. When we play hard. And we have an intrinsic value system of trust. And if my man tells me that he's not infected, then I'm going to believe him, pretty much. I'm going to believe him. And I'm not going to make him wear a rubber even though I know he should. And even if I ask him to wear a rubber, I might not insist that he wear it because he might get upset. And if I'm 38 years old and this is my man and I might risk the chance of losing him because I ask him to wear a rubber, or I might insist that he wear a rubber, I might sleep with him regardless instead of being by myself on Saturday nights.
I tell a lot of grandmothers and mothers who are raising daughters and raising sons that they need to talk about at the kitchen table how to negotiate condom usage, because men are not wearing condoms.
But negotiate, what is there to negotiate?
You got to. I mean, you got to know how to say
it. Negotiate. It's just straightforward. If you don't have it, I'm going to have it. If I'm out in the club and I know, I'm going to get my freak on, or if I'm that type of person where I'm well, I don't want to use the word promiscuous, but I'm going to carry condoms. I'm going to pull it out and give it to you.
You're one of the rare sisters, though, of the last 5 sexual escapades I've had, not one sister asked me to wear a condom. Not one. When I had this conversation with my daughter, it was a very uncomfortable conversation. She's a daddy's girl, and it was very important to me that she always respected me as her daddy, because I've always been part of her life. I was not one of those absent dads. I was there every walk of her life. And so when I had to sit down with my daughter with tears running down her face when I was telling her about my lifestyle and what I did to her mother, her #1 concern was, are you HIV positive? She said, I love you, and I don't care about your sexuality. Because Mama told us a long time ago, and Mama dogged you out a long time ago at the beginning of the breakup. But throughout our life, you was always there for us. She said, I thank you for sharing that with me. Then I had to ask her the most painful question of it all was, are you protecting yourself?
On a lot of levels, the African American community has to address it on a very grassroots level. You cannot create messages that are not culturally competent, because the black community simply won't respond. You have to speak the language of the people that you're trying to reach. You can't talk down to your audience, and you have to go where they are. whether it's schools, churches, everywhere where there's a community center, everywhere where we gather, whether it's events, whether it's parties, there has to be a message that is tailored to each audience uniquely so that they get it. If you don't speak the language, you won't reach who you need to reach.
We can learn. Abstinence is the best policy, but if you're going to engage in any, sexual intercourse, always protect yourself and, just have a communication basis with your partner.
Putting it in people's faces, letting them know that if there's certain behavior that's being practiced, there are going to be consequences, and that is the reality.
We need to be responsible for ourselves.
Education and waking up. This is not the 60s, you know? We're in the year 2002. I mean, this is really about just being careful and wearing protection.
It may sound a little far-fetched, but there's nothing to go to the doctor. As soon as you meet a woman, y'all want a guy meet a woman, a woman meet a guy, and be safe, just go get tested right there on the spot.
Practicing safe sex, I think, is an important way to make sure that women protect themselves, but also being more aware, talking to their male friends, whether they be of the homosexual community or not, talking to their female friends and sharing the knowledge. I think the more that we know how men think, how they operate, the more we can be more empowered and more informed.
Always practice safe sex. There's no party without balloons.
We're talking about, women, sisters taking responsibility, but you know how we do. It's like we'll ask, we'll, inquire. We usually take responsibility for, anything. Why aren't brothers why aren't they stepping up to the plate and demanding that, why aren't they whipping out the condom saying, I'm not going to do this unless I use a condom or something. Why aren't they doing it? That's my question.
And why aren't they being mindful and respectful of us if they're on the down low, having this behavior, knowing the consequences of it and bringing it home?
In the perfect world we live in, it would be great if there was a cure for the HIV virus. But that's not reality. The reality is that there are men who are doing this, and that these men are not going to stop having sex with men and with you.
Everybody wears a mask, so you never know what kind of mask they have on and who they've been with or who they're gonna be with, so best thing you need to do is protect yourself.
I think so. I would like to hope so. And if I miss it for some reason, I would hope that my friends who peep that would bring that to my attention.
I could tell basically from the eyes. It's like something in your eyes. You can see it in your eyes by the way you carry yourself, by the way you talk.
I don't think you know. I mean, it depends what they do for a living. If they work in a professional world, you'll never know. I work in Wall Street for a long time. A lot of people were, and no one knew.
It's funny, as soon as you get a girl or get married, brothers come out of the woodwork. It seems like they're everywhere. It seems like, because there are some men who only deal with brothers who are married. There are some brothers, especially DL brothers, they only deal with you unless you got, bottom line is you got to be masculine, you got to have a girl, you got to have a woman, because DL brothers don't go to gay clubs. If I'm going to meet a brother, I'm going to a club, I'm going to where you go.
Looking back in retrospect, there were a lot of signs. Some of the signs that he was leading a secretive lifestyle were he was extremely homophobic. I have several gay friends who have been like brothers to me over the years when I first came to New York from Chicago. And they were not people that I was just going to cut loose because my husband so-called didn't like gay people. Well, he was so rude, so mean, would forbid them to call the house when I wasn't, when he was there, would forbid me to hang out with them. I used to have monthly dates with my gay friends.
After I got married, I think I started creeping. The creep may have been just a look. The creep may have been just going to bookstores. The creep might have been just going on the internet. The creep might have been just making a connection with a brother downtown at the mall, at the gym. Without the actual physical touch, building up the desire. May go home and do some masturbation while my lady's laying there beside me. I may close my eyes while I'm all up in her thinking about, woo. Because I love making love with my woman. But it's a different type of high, a different type of pleasure when I'm kicking it, not making love, kicking it with my dude. Because when two dudes come together and kick it, we ain't making love. We're just getting off. It's gratification. So it's different. I can get with him at 3 and still be up in you by 6. Mm-hmm.
The MSM population is fueling transmission rates because of the secrecy. You may believe that you're in a monogamous relationship with your mate while your man is having sex on the down low with other men.
My advice to African American women everywhere and to women everywhere would be to check out your mate. Have a relationship with them without having sex. Because if you do that, a lot of things will uncover themselves.
Question your mate carefully. Always require that safe sex is practiced. Even if you feel you're in a monogamous relationship, ask that your mate be tested. Ask about his sexual history.
Everything that I do is for African American women. Everything that I preach and everything that my message is all about is to empower and to give African American women a choice. From the Deltas to the AKAs, from the Sigma Gamma Rhos to the Zetas. Those organizations have the power with their million-plus members to reach out and empower and educate women across this country.
People try to stop this message. I get hate mail from brothers saying, man, why don't you just get the fuck away from us? I've gotten emails from brothers saying, look, man, we will pay you more money than your client is offering you if you don't come to Cleveland, Ohio. I've gotten hate mail from sisters who saying, man, why are you going to talk about brothers? Brothers already are in prison, uneducated, unemployed. Now you're going to talk this craziness?